everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm very excited to be sitting in front of you talking about today's topic, how to stop people pleasing. As I've mentioned before, I am a life coach. I also host for an app called October Health, whereby I speak about various subjects related to self-development and well-being. If you want more information, I'll leave it down below. And something that crops up again and again as something that a lot of people relate to and struggle with is people pleasing in different forms. We'll look at what people pleasing looks like just to see if you relate or if you don't. And we'll understand where it comes from. It's actually a really good intention and it is quite adaptive in some ways. And then we'll look at ways to break away from people pleasing. The most important one, learning how to say no, and then setting boundaries, and we'll understand how that looks. And finally, once you move away from people pleasing, you have a lot more space for you. And so that's quite exciting, and it's going to be a nice way to end. Now let's speak about what people pleasing looks like and what is at the root of it. So people pleasing starts with a good intention of wanting to make others happy, which is really good and it's an admirable quality to have, but we can take it too far when we put that above our own needs. And also when we try to avoid conflict at all costs, even though having some sort of disagreement or even conflict is better for the relationship at the end of the day. And when I say relationship, I mean platonic, familial, professional, whatever it is. So people pleasing might seem like you saying yes to things even though you don't want to do the thing or you're not able to do the thing. It means overextending yourself. It means keeping the peace to the point where you feel like you're bending over backwards and not even showing up as your true self. While it might seem harmless to do things like these at the time, over time it does lead to resentment of relationships, because deep down inside you know you're putting another person above yourself and their needs above your own, and that does not feel good. It also can lead to burnout. If you say yes to too many things and consistently overextend yourself trying to keep other people happy, you will burn out. You won't have enough energy at the end of each day. Also, when you consistently prioritize others over yourself, you start to lose sight of your own true needs and desires. It gets a lot harder to understand what you might need situation to situation and what you actually want if you spend a lot of energy focusing on what other people want and need. And also, even though we might get very good at this as people pleasers, we're still assuming about what other people want and need, and that isn't good and can also lead to difficulties in and of itself. So I put together a few questions that you can think about to see if people pleasing relates to you. The first one is, do you struggle to say no to people when they ask things of you? Following on from that, if you do say no to people, do you feel very guilty after saying no to something? Do you struggle to set boundaries with people? Have you ever helped somebody with something even though you didn't have the time, energy, or capacity to do so? And maybe in doing so, when you help them, you put yourself in quite a conundrum? And lastly, do you avoid conflict at all costs, even though there's something you really do want to speak about that you really were genuinely upset about? If any of these are relatable to you, you might be engaging in more people-pleasing behavior than you realize, so keep listening, because the odds are that a lot more of this will resonate with you too. Now, maybe you related to some of those people-pleasing qualities that I've already mentioned, but you might be thinking to yourself, well, I've gotten this far, why should I stop? There's very important factors as to why people-pleasing isn't good for you. And the first one is, it makes you lack authenticity. If you are people-pleasing in relationships, friendships, other connections in your life, you're not showing up as your true self because you're not acknowledging your true needs and your true desires. You're not voicing them. You're not doing things that you actually want to do. And in some cases, you're not saying what you actually want to say. And even though this might not be overt in connections and friendships and relationships, there's likely to be some kind of disconnect that can't really be put into words. Just because if you're people pleasing the whole time and doing what you think others want, you're not doing what you want, so you're not showing up as you, which leads to this wall in between you and another person. Then, especially in closer relationships, be it a friendship, family, or partner, if you consistently people please for that person, then you might fall into an unhealthy dependence where you're the perpetual giver and they consistently receive. And this can become even toxic because over time, you might grow to be resentful of that other person and the fact that they always accept how you people please, and they may become overly dependent on you. They also might have this underlying feeling of guilt, which just doesn't feel good. So importantly, I think it's good to not approach this with any form of judgment. If you feel that you are a people pleaser and you relate to a lot of this, don't judge yourself. People pleasing is adaptive, and depending on your various childhood situations, it's likely that you've grown to people please because that's gotten you to where you are today, and that's not bad. It's not a bad thing, and it's nothing to judge yourself for. That said, it's important to really think hard now and take a step back and consider if that's actually serving you, because I promise you, it will likely not lead to true fulfillment in relationships if you continue people pleasing. So now that I've explained what people pleasing looks like and why we should step back from it, let's dive into one of the first practical tips on how to do that and actually take that step back. So this comes from Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, and he beautifully outlines the art of learning to say no to things. And I think this is so vital because as people pleasers, we often just say yes without thinking about it, and that leads us to be in tricky situations because once we say yes, we feel we're stuck, and we might say yes and then do the thing, but it's actually not because we want to do it, but because we feel compelled to do it, which isn't great. And importantly, this speaks to the authenticity that I spoke of earlier. If you say yes to something and you don't really want to do it, you're not showing up as authentic, and that won't feel good, and it also won't feel good for the other person that you're saying yes to but not really feeling like you want to do it. So Greg McKeown says that when people ask you to do something, get into the habit of maybe giving it a pause. You don't have to give any answer straight away. You can ask them if it's okay if you think about this and get back to them. You could even take a little bit of time after they've asked and think about it for a few minutes and then get back to them if you don't want to wait that long. Point being, this gets you out of the habit of instinctively saying yes, and it's an easier stepping stone than just saying no because it gives you a little bit of time to figure out what to do. Then for actually saying no, remember that when you say no to doing something for someone, or you say no to attending something or whatever it is, you're not saying no to the person. You're not denying the relationship that you have with that person. You're simply saying no to that activity, to that amount of time. It doesn't mean that you are ungrateful for anything they've ever done for you. It doesn't mean that you'll say no forever and ever. It just means you don't want to do that thing, or you don't have time or the energy, or not able to do something because you would rather do something else. So it's just important, and whatever it is, it's up to you. I don't think you always have to justify yourself. I think as people pleasers, we do, and that's okay. Again, it's a stepping stone to learning to say no. But I think thinking about this as a trade-off is quite helpful, because it's not that you're saying no to the person or the relationship. It's not personal. It's literally about that time. Or if it's something that you don't have that skill, or if it's energy that you just don't have enough energy, or you'd rather put energy in another place. And I just want to say this to you, for anybody listening, it is not mean or unkind to say no to things. It does not make you a bad person. And in the long run, a really sure no is a lot more respectful than a half-hearted yes. It'll do a lot better for your relationships, because people will know that when you do say yes to things, it's because you really want to be there, and you'll really enjoy yourself and show up as a truer version of you if you actually want to be there and you feel that you've chosen it, not that it's been chosen for you. Then, very similar to saying no is being able to set boundaries. And I think this is a huge topic, and I could probably do a whole separate video on this alone, but I still wanted to mention it because if you don't set boundaries, it's very easy to fall back into people-pleasing patterns because it's something that you're used to. But setting boundaries is very specific to the person and where you actually need to set boundaries, because some people might be really good at setting boundaries at work and in their personal life they aren't, or vice versa, and that's just one example. Or they might be really good at setting boundaries with a specific person and not with another. So this leads me into the first question to maybe help you with boundaries, is to ask yourself, where do you feel you're overextending yourself? Where do you feel you're spread too thin and that you're doing things and acting in a way that kind of doesn't sit well with you? It's hard to explain, but you've had this feeling where you know this isn't what you want to be doing or how you want to be spending your time. Just think about it in your own life. Where are you being pushed in a way that just really doesn't feel good? And think about how you can set boundaries in that area or with that person or in that scenario. Sometimes it is helpful to literally practice a statement and learn it off by heart so that you can use it and you know it and it's less scary in the moment. So something like, I can't do this right now, or I'm so sorry, I don't have the capacity for this, but I hope that you figure it out. I know that in my life, I used to make myself far too available to people when I thought they needed me. I would lose sleep, I would change my plans just to show up and be there, and they may not have respected or appreciated the fact that I did that for them. So boundaries was something I needed to put in place there and actually say, I'm sorry, I can't be there right now. If you still need to talk about this tomorrow at this time, I would love to. And in that way, I'm still being there for the person. It's still showing up as myself, but in a way that doesn't take away from me and what I actually need in that moment too. I didn't want to talk about people pleasing and learning how to say no and setting boundaries without mentioning that when you do start to do this, you'll realize that, wow, you're valuing your time, you're valuing what you want, and it's amazing. It feels good. It sets a precedent for yourself that you value you and what you want, which feels so good for your personal relationship with you. At the same time, though, there may be people who are initially surprised and then even might push back slightly. And I just wanted to mention this, that you have been people pleasing for a long time. And if you do take the steps to move away from that and say no and set boundaries, you might find that some people in your life aren't super happy about that. And it could be that they're surprised at first and then they kind of get used to it, and that's okay. And some people might be surprised and then just stay surprised or just not accept it at all. And I want to really emphasize to you that the people who deserve to stay in your life will respect the choices that you make to say no and set boundaries. If people are surprised and they do give some pushback, it's just because they're used to the way that you used to be. They were used to you maybe dropping things to be there for them. So they might be surprised at first because it's something new, it's a change. If they don't get over that at some point, then it's a hard lesson, and I'm not trying to say it's comfortable. It's a very uncomfortable feeling, but it does show you who's in your life for you and who you truly are, and who's in your life just because of what you give them or how you help them. As hard as it is, try not to take it personally, because it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of the old dynamics and the fact that the person liked how you were, not who you are. Also, if you needed some extra inspiration on why not to people please, I just want to put it to you that people pleasing is especially tricky, because if you're a people pleaser, you try to people please multiple people and different relationships that you have, and sometimes this overlaps, and then the people are in one situation and you try to keep multiple people happy, and all in all, To keep everybody happy and to make that your responsibility is impossible. Even if you did everything right by people pleasing one person, you'd disappoint another. So this just gets you in a huge tangled mess, and I really encourage you just to focus on making yourself proud and to focus on aligning your actions with your values and things like that. And those who love you and truly love you for you will respect that and move with you. And those who don't. It's an unfortunate truth, but if you do try to people please, in the long run, you will disappoint somebody. And I can promise you that when you disappoint people and one of those people is yourself, it's a really hard feeling. Then I wanted to end on quite a positive note, that when you do move away from people pleasing and you do start to focus on setting boundaries and saying no, it opens up such beautiful spaces for you. Because if you say no to something you don't want to do, it leaves the space for things you do want to do. And if you set boundaries, you're setting boundaries around things that really matter to you. And this is the beauty of moving away from people pleasing, is that you can really grow the relationship with yourself. So I know that I had a long and very toxic relationship with people pleasing, to the point that when I really worked on this and stepped away from people pleasing, I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I liked to do. I didn't know what my values were if it wasn't being dictated by other people. And that is sad in a way. At the same time, it's a beautiful starting point to learn this about yourself, to discover what you like to do, what do you value. So get to know yourself in this way, get to know what you like, be sure of it, be proud of it, and spend time doing this. Because once you do that more and you learn to be yourself fully and really embrace all the things that make you you without other people telling you what to do or what to like, then you will attract like-minded people. You will attract people who love you when you don't try to please them, when you're just you. And that's the core of it, is that you can then enter relationships, friendships, all those things with people that you don't have to present a facade to, but with people who you can be you around and they can be them, and you just add onto each other's lives instead of feeling like you complete each other. So thank you so much for watching this video. I feel very passionate about this topic because I relate to it in a lot of ways, and I'm a lot further along in my people-pleasing journey than I was. I think it's a practice because it is a habit that's easy to fall back on, but the rewards you get from moving away from people-pleasing and moving towards really valuing yourself and getting to know yourself, they just come and come and come. So let me know your thoughts down below, if you relate to being a people-pleaser and if there's anything you've done to counteract it that maybe I didn't mention. Don't forget to give this video a like, and please subscribe, as that really helps me reach more people, and hopefully they can also learn a few things about how to stop people pleasing.